It seems a storm is brewing in the Zulu Royal House. AmaZulu traditional Prime Minister Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi has told traditional leaders attending a meeting in uMhlathuze on the KwaZulu-Natal North Coast last week that he's considering stepping down from his position as the Prime Minister. Now, while the fracas is centered around the leadership of the Ingonyama Trust, there are surely traditional implications of the Prime Minister possibly stepping away from the Royal House. But to get answers to that question, we're now joined by Professor of African Languages at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, Professor Sihawukele Ngubane. Prof, a good morning to you. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Good morning, Naledi, and your viewers.
Yeah, I think before we actually get into really what's at the heart of the matter here, your initial thoughts, and I'm speaking now from a traditional point of view on the role of the Prime Minister, when you heard this story that the Prime Minister of the AmaZulu Kingdom may very well want to step down. I mean, your initial thoughts?
Yes, I think that will be a very unfortunate situation if he decides to step down after he has done a lot for the Zulu nation. He's been in the position for over 70 years. And if he steps down without consultation with His Majesty and discussion among the two of them, it will be a very sad moment for the Zulu nation.
Yeah, I want to talk about the contribution that he's made. You talk about 70 years in that position as Prime Minister. But what exactly does that role actually mean, right? So what does the Prime Minister of the AmaZulu Kingdom actually represent and do?
Maybe one can say that the Prime Minister is a political wing of the monarch. So he is a confidant of the king, and he has to be of a good standing in the community because of the cultural and traditional affairs and issues that affect the communities that he deals with, and is not a political in the sense of politics, but is a wing that advises the king above the king's council, because we know that the king has got his council, but the Prime Minister is closer to the king as a main advisor and also helps to deal with issues that the king should be dealing with. So in other words, he liaises with the community in terms of culture and tradition of the community. So the core, it's a key position in the tradition, and it's not only for the Zulu people, but it is across the board. In Africa, we have traditional prime ministers who take care of this position.
Yeah,
but the position is the prerogative of the king.
But considering that the Prime Minister of the AmaZulu Royal House has been in that position for 70 years, where does that put the strength of the king if the Prime Minister decides to step aside? I mean, what does this say as well to the people of the AmaZulu nation when they see this fracas playing out, particularly over the leadership of the Ingonyama Trust?
Yeah, I think the strength of this position, here we are talking about Prince Buthelezi, who has been serving in the position. So what will happen or what would be expected to happen was that he hands over to the new, if the king decides to have a new prime minister, that knowledge can be transmitted to the new incumbent of the position. So it will be said if he resigns. We don't expect that he resigns, but I think it must come in voluntarily if he feels like doing that. But for now, I think the king still relies on his services. You remember when he was on the throne, the Prince Buthelezi assisted King Mr. Zulu to sit on the throne. So he played a very pivotal role during the coronation and all the processes. So I think it will be a sad thing if he resigns, but I think they need to discuss, sit down and discuss and iron out their differences, because mainly their differences is on Ingonyama Trust, which is very important and critical for the Zulu nation. The issue of land for the whole South Africa, the issue of land is quite a sensitive issue. And this is part of the responsibilities that the Prime Minister has to advise the king on it. But at the end of the day, the king has the final word on any matters that relates to the nation.
Yeah, you talk about the possibility of handing over the knowledge and responsibility to a new prime minister. I'm trying to imagine who that would be, who would step into those 70-year-old shoes.
Yeah, I think, as I said earlier, Naledi, it is the prerogative of the king. The king must decide who should be his, because each and every king has to appoint a prime minister. It's historical from King Shaka. King Shaka had Ngomane, who was the prime minister. And you count all the Zulu kings, they had their own prime ministers. And in this case, King Buthelezi, the father to Prince Mangosuthu, was the prime minister. And then when King Cyprian was on the throne, he appointed Chief Buthelezi to be a prime minister. So he stayed on this position till now. And if there is a new king has to appoint or reappoint a prime minister.
Yeah, very fascinating, and we'll be watching this one very closely. I imagine many South Africans also quite invested in how this one plays out. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Professor Sihawukele Ngubane, the Professor of African Languages at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Share your thoughts with us as well on that story. You're more than welcome to do so on Twitter at @theagenda_SABC.